Hello everyone, welcome to the League One Lowdown podcast here on the Deck Network. Myself, Jeremy Johnson here, as always with Seb Jones. Something a little bit different this week because we're going to review the two games that happened on Saturday, as well as looking ahead, a preview for Tuesday night and that game on Wednesday as well. Seb, before we kick off, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, very good. Yeah, as you mentioned off air, sort of a very football-filled weekend so far, and there's still more to come. So yeah, it's always good this time of year when there's plenty of games happening. So plenty to get our teeth stuck into.
Exactly. Festive season is with us. My tinsel's up behind me on my wall for people watching on YouTube. So we're definitely that time of year, aren't we? And the game's coming thick and fast. We'll talk, as I say, about that full round of fixtures on Tuesday night. First, though, the two games from Saturday. Cardiff against Huddersfield, Plymouth against Bradford. I guess we sort of drew lots. We watched one game each. I think I got the short end of the stick because you watched the 5-goal thriller that was Cardiff against Huddersfield. Salic brace and Cardiff winning and end a pretty topsy-turvy game, Seb.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned sort of the festive cracker here. This one here, 5-goal thriller between the two sides. Two sides that have sort of been two big hitters of the league in terms of the division. In terms of the squads and the quality that both sides have. And so this was always going to be one of an entertaining matter, but I don't think people quite expected a 5-goal thriller. It was Cardiff that came on top in this one, 3-2, as you said. 2 goals from Salic, Yusuf Salic, the striker for Cardiff. Could have had a few more as well. 2 headed goals, and there was a couple more chances he had with his head. They seemed to always work it really well from set Peters Cardiff, and it was always Salic that was on the end of that one. 2 goals in the one, and they grabbed the assist as well for the Cardiff third goal. This is a beautiful finish from Isaac Davis, sort of just on the end of the 18-yard area, spinning, curling shots, nicely taken. 2 goals and assist for Salic, just Cardiff on the whole, just real sort of continuing their good run of form, really. Bearing the EFL trophy midweek defeat to Wimbledon. They're on a cracking run of form. It's now 3 league wins on the bounce. A few tough ones in there, obviously Northampton, Mansfield, and now dismantling past Huddersfield as well. It's not to say sort of Huddersfield did proper fight. They had a couple of good finishes as well. Castledine with sort of pulling one back for Huddersfield, and then the second one was just a bit of poor defending, really. And Joe Taylor took advantage of that one, and that was sort of the tide. The game was over then. It's sort of 89th minute. But yeah, certainly, yeah, an entertaining one, back and forth. And although we've not got many games in the league, it's certainly made up for them in terms of the goals and the entertaining value as well.
Exactly that. Cardiff, they stayed top, 1 point clear of Bradford, who we'll talk about in just a second. A game in hand as well. Huddersfield down in 8th. They're 2 points, off the playoffs, but has played a game more as virtue of this game. It is 3 League One games without a win now for Town. Cause for concern, do you think, in this game? Another defeat to add to the list?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think there's obviously something wrong at the club. I'm not really sure what it is. Things seem a little bit disjointed at Huddersfield at this moment in time. They can't string together a good run of results. And when they can, the run is quickly ended, basically. We've spoken many times here on pressure of Lee Grant. Started really well, but then it's dipped, and then it got better, then it's dipped again. So, but that is sort of what Huddersfield get for appointing a manager in his first managerial position. That inconsistency is a person that's never managed before. So I guess it's part and parcel of the appointment. It's sort of working out his best team, working out, how to see games out in League One. It's a tricky division. You're going to play against some tough teams, and they've not sort of won in the league in I think it's now 2.5 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks since a win away at Mansfield, and even then that was sort of a run of 3 consecutive victories. And now they're back to sort of inconsistencies, draws, defeats, and yes, they're winning midweek, but actually, yeah, signs of inconsistency showing. I think that comes from having League One as manager in terms of his first proper managerial spell.
So Huddersfield now, they're 3 League One games without a win. Is this one a cause for concern, Seb?
Well, I think so, in terms of Huddersfield and their inconsistency at the minute. Obviously, we knew at the summer when they appointed Lee Grant, it was his first professional managerial appointment. First time he's ever been a manager. Obviously, been coach at Ipswich and Man United as well. So I think you're always going to get that when you do appoint someone that's never had a managerial role before. But for me, it is that inconsistency in terms of obviously starting the season really well, then they dipped off a little bit, and then the results were back on the mend, and now sort of they're going through a bit of an inconsistent patch. Not won since the middle of November. And yeah, it seems to be a bit concerning that they put up a good fight in the match against Cardiff, but they were just beaten by the side with a better quality. Every time Cardiff came forward, they looked more like scoring. Huddersfield at the time didn't really, although they did work it really nicely from a couple of set piece routines. But then again, they couldn't finish off. So it's all well good doing all this work, but when you can't finish, it's a bit of a concern. So yeah, it's definitely inconsistencies. I don't think it's a major concern. I think it's expected with League One and it being his first managerial position, but something to keep an eye on. In only the short point of the season, we've already seen Huddersfield sort of ebb and flow in terms of their results, and they're on a bit of a drought at the minute in terms of looking for that next win, and hopefully that it'll come as soon as possible.
Another team in West Yorkshire, then Bradford, they won 1-0 against Plymouth Argyle, and quite a few bits to pick out of this one. I think I said earlier I got the short end of the stick, if you like, when we decided which of the two games we were going to watch, because this one nowhere near as entertaining as the 5 goals that came at Cardiff, but still plenty to talk about. Bradford weren't amazing, but they got the job done, and they were good enough on the day for sure to beat Plymouth down in Devon. It was a pretty soft penalty that brought the goal. Humphreys won it, and Sarcevic scored it to give the referee his credit, or perhaps to take his side on it. The camera angle was the same view as the referee. We were in line really with the referee's view, and as soon as it happened, I said that's a penalty. Referee gives it, and then you see it from the reverse angle, from the opposite end, and it looks very soft. But I think at the end of the day, it's probably still a penalty. Boo was a big get there eventually. Full time for Tom Cleverley's men. It's 6 losses out of 7 for Plymouth, and they can't win when they go behind. It happens quite a lot, which is the problem they need to solve. Because every time they've gone behind, I'm sure that every time they've gone behind so far this season, they've gone on to lose that game. So that is a massive concern. As soon as they're on the back foot, there is no resilience and no ability to come back in that Plymouth team. And it was all just a bit flat. The other point I would make on them is that there was no real energy. I think that converts to the stands as well. The whole thing's really like unenergetic, and there's no dynamicism, if I can get my teeth back in this morning, to the Plymouth attack. And my main area of concern for them is in terms of their shot taking. They had a lot of shots, 14 compared to the 9 that Bradford managed. In terms of where they came from, 6 of them come outside of the box and 8 inside, which I guess on the face of it doesn't seem too bad. But if you look a little bit deeper into it, and there's the really good maps on FootMob, which give the exact places where all the shots were taken from, and the 2 that were on target were the 2 that were closest to the goal, really, just outside the 6-yard box. There was a lot just inside box, and then a lot more just outside, and it felt a little bit like they were shooting on sight, and they weren't going that extra step to get into a good shooting position. They were just shooting as soon as the opposite opportunity came up. And that, I think, has got to be a concern. And that issue, for me, Seb, feeds back to Tom Cleverley, because it shows a lack of confidence, or at least a lack of identity in terms of a playing style, unless they're being told as soon as you get within 20 yards of the goal, just shoot no matter what, which I can't imagine that's what's happening on the training ground during the week. So I think that's an issue that needs solving. They don't seem able to get in the good positions to be able to find a goal. Of course, they were missing Tolaj after his red card last weekend, and you can tell they're missing a focal point up front because they've got no one to direct the play to when he's not playing. So plenty of issues at Plymouth, but no sign really that Tom Cleverley is going to leave the club anytime soon.
No, and I guess sort of this game showed the difference in that attacking options for the different teams. At one end, you don't have Tolaj, who is sort of, obviously, we know how important he is to Wycombe and how they play. Whereas on the other end, you've got Stephen Humphreys, and it was him that won the challenge. Former Barnsley player, of course. Graham Alexander came out in the post match in terms of Humphreys. Talk about Humphreys' positioning, because for Barnsley, played a lot of time as a left winger, same for Wigan as well when he was there before. But they're opting Bradford to play as a more central striker, because he can sort of run it off the shoulder of players. He can press forward and sort of lead the attacking forefront for the Bantams, and evidently sort of is his good work that's won inside the penalty, and great work it was. Whereas you look at Plymouth without Torrance really struggling in those attacking options, got a Bally Mumba alongside Owen Orsini up front, neither of which really sort of have that presence that perhaps Torrance does, and have that sort of attacking ability and intent that Torrance does, and also Humphreys on the other side as well. So that was really telling for me in terms of two sides with two different focal points in attack. Obviously, one missing theirs, and the other one very clearly sort of having theirs at the forefront of everything that they do. So clearly, sort of two sides that are of different. Bradford obviously needed the result, having had a bit of a dip in form, bit of inconsistencies, and Plymouth also need the result, but they've not got it yet again. So the pressure will certainly get on to Tom Cleverley, but for me, it's in that attacking options and the two different options that both sides have.
I think that's interesting on Humphreys. I think the penalty itself came as he was sort of cutting in from the left. I'm not sold as him as a number 9, really. I don't think he suits that role, but it's working. They're second in the league, 1 point off the top, as I mentioned earlier on, and it's 2 league wins in a row after that pretty poor stretch of form that they were in. They've definitely turned that corner, and they've started now to get onto the right foot as the festive period and those busy stream of games start to come forward. We'll talk about the Tuesday night list of fixtures in just a second. First, a bit of a roundup on the FA Cup. There's a few games still to come. We record this on Sunday morning. But in terms of the games on Saturday, Mansfield lost on penalties after a 2-2 draw with Accrington Stanley. Exeter City 4-0 winners against Wycombe Wanderers in a League One game there. 2-2 it finished between Fleetwood and Luton before Fleetwood won on penalties. So Luton, another League One team out of the competition. Barnsley win at Peterborough United. Cambridge knock out Stockport on penalties after a goalless draw. Port Vale 1-0 winners against Bristol Rovers. Swindon 4-0 winners against Bolton Wanderers. A bit of a shot there. 2-2 it finished between Wigan and Barrow, with Wigan winning on penalties. And then the late game, 7:30, Doncaster won 2-1 away to Huddersfield after John Fleck was sent off about 5 minutes after coming on, the former Sheffield United man. So your pick of that, Seb, some interesting results. Few League One teams still in, a few dumped out.
Yeah, and that's the joys of the FA Cup, isn't it, really? You never quite know how it's going to go. Plenty of League One sides involved, some aren't, and obviously we're able to play the league fixtures. So, yes, some varying results. I think certainly the standout for me is it's a game involving Bolton and losing 4-0 away from home to Swindon, League Two Swindon, that is. Just a reminder, an absolutely thumping. 3 goals came in the second half, and actually Bolton played a pretty strong side. Obviously they made a few changes, but the sort of the crux of it was the side that played the last match prior in the league. So that will be certainly a concern for the Bolton fans. But yeah, to lose by that margin against a side in the lower division, having played quite a lot of their usual starters, will be a concern. And obviously they've got a chance to turn things around quickly on Tuesday night, which we'll come to in a sec. But just that level of margin of defeat will hurt them massively. It's home and good sort of, maybe losing to a 1-0 smash and grab. That's sort of a different, but to get thumped 4-0 by a side in the division below, clearly Swindon were up for it and Bolton weren't. So yeah, that one for me is going to be the standout game of the games involving League One clubs.
Yeah, definitely that. And that just brings on to our previews. I guess we're taking on the mantle of Sam and Callum, because we're going to look ahead to Tuesday night. Bolton we'll talk about first. They're away at Mansfield. My bit on the FA Cup games, I was at the Doncaster game, and it was probably hard fought, is what you would say. And it's, I think, an interesting sort of paradigm that we've been losing games when playing pretty well. And against Barnsley, we probably should have got at least a point out of that game. Played pretty well, didn't win. And then we've beat Peterborough without playing that well. And then 7 days on, we beat Chesterfield without, again, playing that well. So it's interesting. You don't have to play well to win games, really, especially in League One. And that has been a real theme of this season, hasn't it? A lot of teams still up the top of the table who haven't been performing amazingly, but they're still winning games of football. Exeter as well, 4-0 winners against Wickham is an interesting score. Definitely a turn up for the books there. As promised then, Bolton against Mansfield. It's at Mansfield, this one. And Wanderers, pretty strange, I think, is the way to describe their recent run of form. They were 8 unbeaten before the FA Cup defeat, but plenty of key players, as you mentioned, Seb, still in that team. It wasn't like it was a second string lineup they put out, and they got absolutely thumped by Ian Holloway's men. Mansfield, for their part, have lost 4 games in a row before the FA Cup, and they've not been good enough as of late. Pretty mid-table form, you would say. So your reading of this one could be an interesting one Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, it's certainly two teams that need a win and need to get some sort of positive result from that. Mansfield have not won in the league since the end of October, so that's sort of a pretty long stretching run. They've got through in the FA Cup thanks to a penalty shootout away at Accrington, so they managed to squeeze past another League Two club in that one. Obviously, the same can't be said for Bolton, but Bolton themselves are on a pretty poor run of form, so it will be really interesting because it's two poor sides, well, two sides that are on a poor run of form at the minute. I mentioned Mansfield not winning in quite a long time. Bolton have won in recent weeks, but they struggled to put sort of a run of wins together. And like I say, coming off this battering in the FA Cup, their confidence will certainly be low, and they're lucky that they've got such a short turnaround where they can pick up a result against a low on confidence Mansfield side. So my part would be on Bolton, but wouldn't surprise me if Mansfield sort of took advantage of Bolton being in a bit of a low state given the result of the weekend.
Yeah, I think for me, it's got to be a blip, that Saturday result. I can't imagine it's going to continue, given how well they have been playing in the league as of late. As I say, sort of mid-table and quite a lot of the stats, Mansfield, either just above mid-table, just below mid-table. Apart from on clean sheets, they're 20th in terms of clean sheets out of the 24 teams in the league, and that has got to be something that Bolton can exercise their control over. Koji Dewberry has been fantastic so far this season. 6 goals, 6 assists. I talked about him. If you don't follow us on TikTok, do follow us on TikTok. Some really good stuff going out there across between now and Christmas. Our 24 days advent calendar, I guess we should call it, as we review alphabetically the best player or the best thing going on at a certain club each day. I did Bolton the other day, and Koji Dewberry is the person I talked about in terms of what has been going really well for Bolton so far this season. So he's, as always, is a real key to how well they perform. And yeah, I can't imagine Bolton not scoring in this game. And then it becomes a point of, can Mansfield get on the score sheet? Because that's not been easy for them as of late.
Yeah, they need to get their shooting boots on clearly, and yes, there's a game to do it. It will be a game where Bolton have, a pretty low on confidence given the result. But yeah, stretching back, looking for a win as long as they have Mansfield, they need a win and they need it sort of fast. And obviously, questions. If it was another club, questions might be asked about the manager, but obviously that is certainly not the case with neither club from Mansfield. So he's the right man in charge. I'm sure a result will pick up and get as soon as possible, especially given the Christmas run and obviously games coming thick and fast. So there'll be a win coming soon for Mansfield, and it's just about hoping it comes as soon as possible.
I thought you were going to predict a Mansfield win then. I was holding with bated breath. I was going to be surprised, but not so much. The next one, Leyton Orient at home to Luton Town. Leyton Orient were battered on Friday. They played Salford in the FA Cup. Richie Wellens was furious. If you haven't seen it on the post-match interview, I think it was with TNT, the interviewer says, hard luck, and Richie Wellens pretty much cuts him off. It wasn't hard luck. We were awful, sort of to summarise what he was saying. 2 losses in the week for them in the cup competition. They were, though, 3 unbeaten before that, and it looked like they had started to turn that corner, had a few decent results, a few chaotic games. I think we talked a lot about refereeing decisions in Leyton Orient games. It seemed like there was a lot going on in their games as of late, but 2 back-to-back now results in the defeats in the 2 cup competitions. They're coming up against Luton, who have been inconsistent themselves, up and down a little bit under Jack Wilshere as of late, rotated for that loss in the FA Cup. And you've got to see this as a good chance for them to get back on the right footing as they play Leyton Orient.
Yeah, well, both sides coming into this one sort of from FA Cup defeat. Obviously, Leyton Orient one is a bit more hefty than Luton, who lost their county shootout. Nevertheless, they still lost to a side in League Two, but still defeats at the end of the day. So both sides will want to put things right as soon as possible. You said there about Luton, they actually have come back from the 5-0 defeat at Barnsley. They've come back from that in a really strong manner, 3 unbeaten just before the FA Cup tie at the weekend. So they bounced back really well. And even before that 5-0 tie, they were in a good run of form as well. So, yeah, it just got inconsistencies. But again, like I mentioned with Lee Grant earlier on, it's what you're going to get in terms of a manager that's never managed before. He's still sort of finding out how properly to see out games in this division. And yeah, it's obviously going to take time for Jack Wilshere and for him to be fully embedded as well. So I don't think it's a major concern in terms of their inconsistency. I think it's expected. As for Leyton Orient, I think the 2 defeats in the 2 cup competitions in the recent week will absolutely be used as sort of a platform, really, and a bit of sort of to gather themselves together a little bit in terms of to putting things right. Obviously, you know, we spoke about Wellens' post-match there. He wasn't happy with the result at all. He knew his players didn't perform. He knew his side didn't perform, and he'll be the first one to put things right. He'll got them on the training ground Sunday morning, maybe even Saturday morning as well, to put things right. You know, all the time and effort that goes into it, and yeah, so he'll be the one in most demand of a win coming soon. And yeah, so it's in recent form, it's 2 sides that are sort of a similarly inconsistent, and especially both coming into this after FA Cup defeats.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, especially with Leyton Orient. They won 4-0 in their most recent League One game against Burton, who have, since we spoke to Gary Bowden, that's still obviously available on YouTube and podcast platforms, our interview with the Burton manager. But since then, they've really started to struggle, and Leyton Orient shocked us all by winning 4-0 away from home at Burton. And then these 2 cup defeats sort of blind the face of that. So a little bit odd, you would say, in terms of the recent form for Leyton Orient. I guess you could say a similar thing for Peterborough, because they're 4 losses in a row now after being pretty good in those first immediate couple of weeks when Luke Williams came in. That good work has soon evaporated. As I say, 4 defeats in a row. This is the featured 8 p.m. kickoff on Tuesday night. They play Reading away from home. They've been poor when it matters in terms of both boxers, and when there's a really big opportunity, they've not been strong enough in those sort of areas, but they play really nice football. They're a great footballing team to watch, and they pass the ball very nicely, move very well and very swiftly, but that's not translating, at least at the minute, for Luke Williams' side, into results and into goals.
No, it's 4 consecutive defeats in all competitions for Peterborough and Luke Williams' side. Still only 5 league wins from 17 games played so far this season. Conceded 20 and scored 20, so the goal difference is 0, which is not something we see that often. But that sort of shows in line in terms of they pass it around really nicely. They have sort of quality players in the attacking position as well, but evidently they can't keep a clean sheet. They can't not concede goals, and that is a big concern, really, when you are in the position that you are. 11 defeats from the 17, so it's a massive. It's really disappointing, I think, for Luke Williams, because he came in, had that bounce straight away to then go to this run of form, 4 defeats in a row. And I know that there's 2 cup competitions within that, but even still, the cup competitions, one of them is Swindon, who obviously a League Two side, as we said, and one of them against a fellow League One for Barnsley as well over the weekend. So yeah, disappointing, really, and you know they in terms of the game at the weekend, they didn't sort of do themselves any. They were really bad. Barnsley were just better on the day. It was sort of, you know, especially that first half, not the most exciting. Two sort of sides cancelling each other out. But Barnsley found that quality, got the 1 goal, and Peterborough just didn't. And that's what they need, really, sort of again, going forward, to just find that one bit of magic, one bit of quality to win them a game, to keep them a clean sheet. And that's something that has been lacking for Peterborough. So Luke Williams has got to, having had that new Matt Ryan's bounce, is now going to sort of bring that spark back. And I imagine he'll be making well use of the January window as well. But in terms of the game on Tuesday, Reading are actually on a pretty good run of form. Only 1 defeat in 5 in all competitions, and that was in the EFL Trophy. So it depends how sort of much you read into that one. Yeah, I think it will be tough. I think it'll be two sides that both have attacking options up front and that capabilities to do one over the other team. But yeah, it'd be certainly one to watch, and I'm not surprised it's been chosen as the 8 p.m. kickoff as well.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good game. That this run stretches even further than that. Actually, the 6th game, just the one defeat in that 3-2 was against Carlisle in the FA Cup. Their 3-0 win last time out against Blackpool was their first away from home this season, and that has got to be a confident boost because that was that sort of monkey off the bat and how poor they were doing away from home. And now they've managed to sort of get past that, back on hope, so now against Peterborough. And I expect Reading, I guess we'll throw a prediction in. I expect Reading to get something out of this game. I said winning, really. I mean, Peterborough are struggling. On to our next game then, it's Lincoln City against Barnsley. Both teams, again, in pretty inconsistent form. There's a 6-point gap in the table, but Barnsley have actually played 3 games less than the 4th place Lincoln City. So that difference in the table is probably a little bit slimmer than it actually looks. It's 3 league games unbeaten for Barnsley. Patrick Kelly was the goal scorer against Peterborough. And I guess it in a way links back to our conversation in terms of Peterborough not having much up front, because Barnsley have been so diverse in their attacking options. And that I guess core 4 with Keylor Dunn, the 2 wingers, and Patrick Kelly have been absolutely fantastic as of late. And that's been the driver, really, for Barnsley. Lincoln, another team that have a lot of options, been playing with 4 strikers for much of the campaign so far. So it should be an interesting one. 2 teams with lots of different options up front. We're expecting goals, so I'm sure a 0-0 will come our way.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I think two sides that certainly have options in the forward area. And then you mentioned that in terms of Barnsley's like core setup, really that's just been added to because Fabio Giallo made his first start of the season at the weekend in the FA Cup, so that'll only provide an extra option. Caelan Vickers as well made a start at the FA Cup. He's sort of been out of favour a little bit. He's just been used as a substitute, whereas he actually started the season as the right winger, but seems to have lost his spot. But if he can find a bit more form, then there's plenty of options for Barnsley and Conor Hourihan's side, and that is something that will come and be really vital for them going forward. But yeah, Lincoln are exactly the same. You know, they've got that consistent sort of forward line as well. That always seem to be producing the goods, really, and yeah, it'll be certainly an attacking minded game, this one, you know, between Lincoln and Barnsley. Obviously, Lincoln are the ones on the face of it that seem to have a better season, but Barnsley, if they can get a win in all their 3 games of hand, then they would leapfrog Lincoln and go towards that top 2. And obviously, not none of those postponed games have been rearranged just yet. But yeah, that will be the case. Lincoln have scored 7 goals in the last 5 matches and a third in the home form in the league this season. So they certainly sort of have something to keep a hold of in terms of their good form at home. And Barnsley similarly have scored 7 in the last 5 and averaged 1.7 goals per game. So we can expect at least 2 goals. Let's round that up a little bit. At least 2 goals in the game between Lincoln and Barnsley. But yeah, it should be a good one, this one, because I think 2 sides that are on a really good run of form, that both have attacking options, both have quality in and around the pitch. And yeah, here's for number, like you said. Yeah.
And are you heading to the hour on Tuesday?
I'm not. My family members are going. I myself am not going out. I'm working, so I shan't be there. But I went there last season when Barnsley got the 2-0 victory, so hopefully we can replicate that scoreline and that performance as well, because it was pretty good from the Reds on that day.
No, I remember that one. Yeah,
right early on in the season. So I think it's first away game of the season. So yeah, it seems to be I don't know if the Barnsley have lost at Lincoln for a few years now. there's been a few disappointing draws, I think, from memory, but I don't think they've lost in recent times.
Yeah, I remember Sam Cosgrove scoring on that Barnsley away win. I remember that quite fondly, some reporting I was doing that day. But I will be at the Doncaster game on Tuesday. They play Stockport County at home. Are you happy with that segue, Seb?
I like that,
And
yeah.
I'm quietly confident. I'm going to get your take on it. I don't know if I've been sort of influenced by the last couple of victories, but it's 3 in a row now wins for Doncaster, and they play a Stockport side who haven't won since Oliver Norwood went down injured, if you take away a penalty shootout victory in the EFL trophy. The only stats that work in the opposite direction is sort of the recent head-to-head form. Stockport did the double over Doncaster in the 23-24 season, and Rovers haven't won against County since 2022, a late winner in a 2-1 win there. So I'm quietly confident headed into this one. Am I wrong to be confident, or what do you reckon?
No, I don't think so. I can see why you're confident because, well, but from a Doncaster point of view, in terms of they're on a really good run of form, consistently sort of have got positive results now in the last 3 or 4 games. And in terms of from a Stockport point of view as well, they are on a bad run of form. They are sort of they're the draw specialists at the minute. I think it's 4 draws in the last 5 in all comp. So, you know, you could argue that the draw against Barnsley the few weeks ago was pretty lucky from their point of view, but they are sort of they're not fighting, they're not giving up fight, not giving up hope in terms of still trying to cling on for something in the games that they are playing. But certainly on the pitch, they're not the side that they were about a month or so ago. They also like a bit of fight, a bit of spirit about them. And that is because Ollie Norwood is not involved. They've had a few disruptions elsewhere as well in the pitch, a few sort of suspensions, and that is sort of coming to fruition. They're going through a tricky spell at the minute, Stockport, but obviously, not tricky as perhaps some of the other sides at the bottom of the table, sort of losing every week. But it's just they just have to ride the wave out a little bit. I think the good results will come. It's tricky spell in sort of it's measured in terms of the high expectations that we expect from Stockport, and at the minute they haven't been hitting them. So yeah, I can see why you're positive as an obviously Doncaster Rovers fan. Things do line up in the recent favour for Rovers to get something from this one. And Stockport away from home as well. Doncaster seems to be pretty good at home. Last 2 home games that have been wins. So I need to use that as a reasoning for them to get the win here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I'm not on an island in terms of that positivity there. I think it's an interesting case with Stockport. It's how much that one miss in terms of Oliver Norwood, how important he is, that cog in midfield. Taking him out of that team has really made everything disjointed. He was sort of, I guess, the centerpiece that was dragging everyone and holding everything together. And despite the attacking options they do have, they've got a wealth of attackers. They're not able to get in those really strong positions. Joseph Alowu as well, in terms of the centre-back, his first game against Doncaster after leaving in the summer. So his reception, I'm not too sure what sort of reception he's going to get because a good servant for the club, but obviously left in the summer to go to Stockport. But it should be a pretty good game I'm expecting on Tuesday night. And we've got one final game we're going to talk about in a decent bit of detail, and that is on Wednesday. It's Rotherham United against Blackpool. Blackpool, they play Carlisle on Sunday, which I'm assuming is the reason it's been, I guess, jolted back an extra day. They're struggling, though, as we talked before that FA Cup game. They're 5 without victory, whereas Rotherham have lost just 1 of their last 13 games. There's plenty of draws in that, but still a mighty good run of form, especially considering the injury list they've had over recent weeks. 7-2 they beat Salford in the EFL trophy last midweek. Josh Benson got a hat-trick in that game. So Rotherham on good form, scoring plenty of goals, not losing very many games against a Blackpool team that are losing a lot of games. It seems like an obvious one, but I guess we've learned by now that League One's not really panning out in the obvious way this season.
No, absolutely not. And Blackpool on the poor form, actually, that came off the back of a really good run of form. Things had picked up since Ian Evatt first took over, but then things have sort of dipped again and gone back to how things were. I think they were 5 unbeaten when Evatt first took over, and now things have taken a bit of a turn for the worse, but still won't be long till they get back on track. Obviously, they have the FA Cup game, which is just after we record this, so depending how that will go will depend on sort of how they will see the game on Wednesday night. You know, if it's a positive result, it's the first win in a while for them, and they can use that as as a bit of a changing of the tide, turning of the tide. I think the phrase, isn't it? So, but then if it goes against him,
I was expecting a Seb Jones springboard. Then you
well,
let me down.
I was trying to think of other words that we weren't springboard. Whereas if they go for a defeat against the League Two side, then you can imagine the morale at the club not being the best, given it is at home as well, in front of the TV cameras. So that you can only imagine that will disappoint the fans that will come out and watch. So yeah, the result on Sunday could go either way. Obviously, a win could absolutely give them the springboard, but then a defeat would just make things a hell of a lot worse in terms of they're still without a win in such a long time, and also losing to a side in the division below as well. So yes, I guess it all relies heavily on the result on Sunday and how he never chooses it, whether he keeps the same sides that have been playing in recent league games, or whether he sort of rolls the dice a little bit and shuffles his pack and makes a few changes. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting which way he goes in terms of that. Is he going to shake it up after these clutch of poor results? They have the worst away record in League One, just 4 points so far this season on their travels, 27 available. So that is a real issue, and one they need to solve quite quickly if they're going to propel themselves away from that relegation zone with Ian Evatt in charge. Maybe eyes turning towards January, just a month to go. Some reinforcements, some more Ian Evatt type players perhaps in January. The other games then that we're not going to talk about in too much detail, but Exeter City, they play AFC Wimbledon after their victory at the weekend. Northampton Town host Huddersfield Town. Port Vale against Bradford in a battle of two promoted teams who have got very contrasting seasons so far. Stevenage play Cardiff in an unlikely table topping clash. It's sort of first versus third, isn't it, that one? Wycombe Wanderers against Plymouth Argyle, and then there's no gains for Bolton. For Burton Albion, I beg your pardon, or Wigan Athletic, with Burton playing on Monday night in their FA Cup game. So there's some other interesting games in there. I think Stevenage Cardiff, Seb, could be a one to pick out, because as much as they're close together in the table, it doesn't really seem like that on recent form and on how the two teams have sort of been lining up as of late. And it's an interesting case, isn't it? At home as well for Stevenage. If they can get something out of that game, perhaps that indicates that they might stay up there a little while longer.
Yeah. I mean, so certainly from our point of view, we've all been like, oh, Stevenage is going to drop down, they're going to drop down. But actually, they haven't really sort of come away from that pack. They've stayed amongst that top three, top four pack at the top of the table. So, yeah, a result certainly on Tuesday night against the team at our top would certainly be a statement for not just the teams at the top of the table, but the whole division, in terms of saying we're going to stay up here. We see ourselves amongst the top few teams in this division. So yeah, win for Stevenage would be great, and Cardiff, obviously only one of 4 teams to play in the league on Saturday. And what a win that was, as we spoke about. So yeah, they'll see that as a bit of a morale boost, I think, in terms of getting that good win coming on the back end of the 5-goal thriller on Saturday.
Exactly that. Well, thank you, Seb. Bit of a mixed bag in terms of our podcast there. So I hope you've enjoyed something a little bit different in terms of the reviews and previews, sort of smashed into one podcast. Sam and Callum will be back for their regular slot. I'm sure they'll look back on Tuesday as well, ahead to next weekend's fixtures. I mentioned it earlier on, but do remember to check out our interview with Gary Bowyer if you haven't already. Really interesting stuff. Evergreen, really, in terms of his managerial career and his journey into managing, as well as current happenings at Bolton Albion. So myself and Seb will be back next weekend. Luckily for us, I think, back to just review territory. We're much more comfortable in that space, if you like. And our festive scheduling will be confirmed very soon. So keep an eye out across our socials for that. So thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you again next week on the League One Lowdown.